Hello and thanks for joining us for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. I'm your host, Mitchell Ringos. Well, officials and residential school survivors gathered in Thunder Bay this week to sign a memorandum of understanding for the Lac Seul First Nations Bringing Our Children's Homes initiative. The project's primary goal is to locate and identify grave sites at a former residential school and at a former Sioux Lookout hospital. Lee Noonan reports.
The Bikiwewinak Nindawashishimananik initiative was created to investigate the burials of Pelican Lake residential school students and address the harm inflicted on survivors. Lac Seul First Nation, whose territory the school was located on, administers the program on behalf of 33 First Nations.
A lot of our members from Lac Seul went there. My parents went there. My brothers went there as well, and people from the north were sent to Pelicans.
The 3-year, multi-million-dollar initiative plans to begin the search for graves next summer at the sites of the residential school and the former Sioux Lookout Zone hospital.
Parents up north say, what happened to my child? He was sick and was sent to the zone hospital, but after that there's been nothing. We're not sure what happened, and we believe some of these children may have been buried.
For now, the initiative is focused on engagement sessions with survivors, gathering their stories and taking direction from them.
They're the lead. They tell us what to do and how the search should be conducted, when, where.
Most of the activities that we do come from our ideas and that come from the survivors.
In addition to locating and memorializing the graves of children who died at Pelican Lake, the initiative also aims to reclaim the child inside each survivor.
We get together and we share our stories, and sharing our stories brings healing into our lives.
In order for us to heal and thrive on to other things in life, we need to work on ourselves. We need to grow and survive. That's what the survivor is.
The Northern Anishinaabe Education Council and Sioux Lookout First Nations Health Authority formally entered into partnership with Bikiwewinak Nindawashishimananik at the event. The next milestone for the initiative will be the signing of an agreement with the governments of Ontario and Canada, which have already announced nearly $9 million in funding, most of it from the federal government. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
A sentencing hearing was held in Kenora this week for a man who pleaded guilty to second-degree murder in the deaths of 2 Dryden area seniors nearly 3 years ago. 39-year-old Justin Desatel faces an automatic life sentence, with his eligibility for parole the only thing left to be determined. The murder charges stem from a violent rampage at the Arbor Jade Trailer Park just north of Dryden in March of 2020. 5 people were attacked, and one of them, 78-year-old Mervyn Brownlee, was found dead in his trailer. Another victim, 72-year-old Dorothy Dot Brown, died in hospital 3 weeks later. Desatel pleaded guilty in August to the 2 counts of second-degree murder, along with other charges including aggravated assault. Following a plea bargain in court, lawyers for the defense and the Crown submitted a joint recommendation asking for 13 years of parole ineligibility. A date for sentencing will be set on October 31st. The Thunder Bay Regional Health Sciences Center has taken another step towards cardiovascular surgeries being available at the facility. The project has received approval to move to the 3rd of 5 stages, and if all goes to plan, the first heart surgery could happen by the end of 2026. Vasilios Bellos reports.
It's exciting progress for the Thunder Bay Regional Health Sciences Center's cardiovascular surgery project as it gained approval to move to stage 3 of 5. This phase of the project includes preliminary space design and detailed electrical, fixture, furniture, and equipment needs. Once completed, the surgery space will feature a cardiac operating room for open heart surgery, imaging equipment for minimally invasive heart surgeries, and beds for a cardiovascular surgery unit and coronary care unit. Premier Doug Ford made a trip to the hospital in August of last year to announce $5.2 million in funding to help move the project forward. Local MPP Kevin Holland was at the hospital for this latest announcement and recognizes the importance of being able to carry out these procedures in the region.
Not having to travel out of town, being away from family and friends, having those services here can mean the difference between life and death for a lot of people, and you can't put a value on that, of course, but yeah, it's just going to be such a benefit to our residents in Thunder Bay and the district. So.
It's expected the clinical program and design development teams working on Stage 3 will be able to submit for approval in November. Hospital President Rhonda Crocker-Ellicott explains the next steps if Stage 3 gets the green light.
So that brings us to the point where we'll get to, the further stages, which will enable us to go out to tender for construction, which is expected in 2024. So things are moving fairly quickly now. We recognize there's been some challenges through the pandemic. Everybody's been incredibly busy, but this is really the commitment that the teams needed in order to move things forward in a really meaningful way.
If all goes as planned, the first heart surgery in Thunder Bay could be performed at the end of 2026. Once these procedures begin locally, it will provide comfort to those needing surgery, knowing their loved ones are close by, while eliminating the stress of having to travel across the province. Vasilios Bellows, TBT News.
Well, it's now officially safe to drink the tap water in Sachigo Lake First Nation as the advisory was lifted on October 12th, 4 years after it was upgraded to long-term. The drinking water advisory had affected 185 homes and 5 community buildings in the First Nation. The Wendigo Tribal Council Hub is operating the now upgraded water treatment system. There are 18 drinking water advisories remaining in northwestern Ontario, affecting 15 different First Nations. Well, after nearly 6 months working without a contract, workers at the Terrace Bay Pulp Mill voted 81% in favor of a new 4-year deal. The collective agreement with mill owners AV Group will mean significant wage increases for workers represented by United Steelworkers and the Electrical Workers Union. The agreement will affect roughly 300 workers, mostly those with USW Local 665. They'll see raises of 20 to 24% over 4 years, starting at 6.6 to 9.9% in the first year. Steelworkers Union Rep Herb Danaher calls the agreement a milestone for Terrace Bay and the region.
This sort of draws us even with the other comparable industries. Like, we're competing for staff with the Thunder Bay bill as well, among other regional bills. So, I mean, we have to have a competitive wage rate because people will go, especially with the labor shortage the way it is now. There's labor shortages everywhere you go. So it's important that everybody's sort of on a level playing field. So we got ourselves there.
We worked really hard together to come up with an agreement which I think is the best for both the company and the employees. We've got enhancements in wages, total compensation, benefits, pension, and it really solidifies the next 4 years, giving confidence to both the community and the employees on what we need to do to go forward.
Not included in the collective agreement was the issue of housing, which both sides feels is important to attracting workers to the area. Vizintin says the company is working with local government to improve housing options in the area, saying it's just part of doing business. Well, a transitional housing project at the Mattawa Training and Wellness Centre in Thunder Bay is moving ahead. Ontario Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing announced over $2 million for 21 transitional units to help the vulnerable Indigenous population get the support they need. Mike Lang has more.
Great news for your organization and great news for this community.
What was once a long-term care facility is now becoming a modernized Indigenous care facility. Thanks to the $2.1 million investment announced by Minister Steve Clark, vulnerably housed Indigenous people will start living at the revamped Mattawa Training and Wellness Center, located in the former Dawson Court Home for the Aged on Algoma Street. 21 units of transitional housing are being created on the lower level, built for individuals and families dealing with financial difficulty, mental health issues, or substance addiction. There will also be lounges, shared living spaces, and wheelchair-accessible washrooms.
It's very important as part of our journey of reconciliation that we support organizations like Mattawa to ensure that membership in the Northwest have not just a place to call home, but also have the services that they need. So this is something that right from our election in 2018 we put as a priority, and we've worked and essentially doubled funding to Indigenous communities since 2018.
Clark and local MPP Kevin Holland say it's about more than just giving people a roof over their heads, but also providing them with care that caters to their individual needs, which they'll have access to at Matawa Training and Wellness Center. Children and teens can receive trade school and secondary school courses in their learning center, while adults can participate in programs for financial literacy, cooking lessons, and life skill training, among others. New offices are also being built for full-time caseworkers, which means there will always be someone on site that can provide immediate social assistance. Board President Rosemary Munia spoke about the importance of having accessible services for those in need all in one location.
It's hard to find affordable housing, so coming into the city, they're not familiar with all the services that are offered, and we're be able to provide services in one location and meet all their needs, their social, mental health, everything.
While the entire reconstruction won't be finished for another couple of years, furniture has already been ordered for the 21 units, as they're expected to be complete within the next 6 months. Mike Lang, TBT News.
Well, after the break, we'll have a look at the mayoral candidates in both Terrace Bay and Scribe. Welcome back. Well, we're now going to take a last look at some mayoral races before Monday, with municipal elections set to go throughout the region. In Terrace Bay, former town councillor Gino LeBlanc is taking his second run at the mayor's seat. He'll be up against current councillor Paul Malashewski for the town's top job. LeBlanc sat on council for 12 years before his first mayoral run in 2018. He lost that race, but he's feeling good about his chances this time around. He says he's running for his grandkids to make sure they will always have a choice to stay in town if they choose to. Malashewski has been a Terrace Bay councillor for 4 years. He feels that as a lifelong resident with 45 years of volunteer work behind him, he can make a difference for the community. Both candidates name an aging population and a housing shortage as key issues.
Supportive housing, seniors housing has to be a priority for Terrace Bay. And then that'll make room for the new generation to stay or move to Terrace Bay and keep our ball rolling in Terrace Bay.
Like the other small towns around here, we have a housing shortage. We have an aging population. Seniors, need some help, whether it be a senior housing or someone to come into their house and help them with their cooking, their cleaning.
For Malashewski, emergency services are also a top priority, and lobbying to keep an EMS station in Terrace Bay will be high on his agenda. LeBlanc says his first action would be to review all reports from the last 4 years and work with council and administration to set priorities as a team. And with 4 candidates vying for the mayor's seat in Schreiber, residents there will have a wide range of options when they go to the polls on Monday. Incumbent Mayor Kevin Mullins is squaring off against local journalist Kim Krause, entrepreneur Dominic Camiso, and songwriter Adam Cherry. He asked each candidate what their priorities are for Schreiber.
You know what? We got to talk to the government about homes and housing, and I mean housing of all kinds. I'm going to say that the other issue is the Superior North EMS.
We need to adapt to our shrinking population. If it means we have to figure out better ways to deliver services or different ways to deliver services, or just look at maybe some cuts that we have to do so people aren't constantly being taxed on top of the taxes they pay because there's a shortfall in money available.
So I'm all about residual tax base. That's my catchphrase, residual tax base, long after we're gone. And there's a few industries that can do that here, and that's what I go after. Tourism, education, medical. I think once we build the basic infrastructure, I think those would keep us going forever and a day.
I actually promise, and I will keep my promise, not to raise property taxes throughout my term as mayor. And I've talked with this in public meetings. I've talked with this at doors. I cannot promise not to raise the impact rate, but I will not raise the town rate.
Mullins was elected as a councillor in 2018 before being appointed mayor following the death of Mayor Dave Hamilton. Krause was also elected to council in 2018, but then resigned to run the Schreiber Media Centre. He also ran for the Ontario Green Party. Adam Cherry has also run provincially for the Consensus Party. For Camiso, this is his first run for office, having recently returned to Schreiber. Well, the inquest into the deaths of Don Mamakwa and Roland McKay continued this week in Thunder Bay, with one expert witness testifying that Mamakwa would have very likely have survived had he received treatment instead of being put into a police holding cell. ER physician Dr. Alim Pardham testified Tuesday that ketoacidosis tied to diabetes and alcohol, along with the underlying sepsis that killed the Cabasa-Bonica man, are 3 very treatable conditions if caught early and treated aggressively. The inquest jury also saw a video that showed officers dragging a different Anishinaabe man into a cell. One of the officers admitted that was a common practice in 2014, the year Mamakwa died. His uncle, 50-year-old Roland McKay of Big Trout Lake, died in police custody 3 years later. The inquest took a break after Wednesday's testimony and will resume on Monday. Flooded basements and washed-out roads were commonplace through the region this spring, but in Nipigon, the township has undertaken a $1 million roadwork project in the hopes of mitigating a more unusual problem, flooding at the top of the hill. Storm sewer manholes and catch basins are being added on a section of McCurdy Avenue, along with a curb and gutter to direct water away from homes. There's also an infiltration trench at the highest elevation point to help capture runoff in the ground. Public Works Superintendent Jeff Aiken explains that the flooding affected the properties that sit below the elevation of the road.
During times of snowmelt and heavy rainfall, driveways were being washed out, backyards were flooded, and on occasion some of the basements would get flooded. So one of the expected outcomes of the project is to minimize that happening moving forward. It's unique to say that you have a flooding problem at the top of the hill, so we're hoping that's resolved.
Aiken says although the work involves only a small section of the road, the $1.1 million project is financially significant for the township. The work also includes the replacement of an old sewer, the addition of a trunk water main, and new asphalt, and is expected to be complete by early November. Well, up next, a new Junior A team is making its mark in Sioux Lookout. Welcome back. Now, like we were saying before the break, it's the first time since the Flyers packed up shop in 2012. The junior A hockey team is back in Sioux Lookout. The Bombers are the newest club in the SIJHL, and the club doesn't plan on wasting any time establishing themselves as a force to be reckoned with. Kurt Black reports.
Last season, the Cam River Fighting Walleye proved an expansion club can not only survive in the SIJHL, but thrive, setting first-year win records en route to the Bill Salonen Cup final. This season, the new kids on the block are the Sioux Lookout Bombers, who, led by 28-year-old head coach Carson Johnson, are attempting to deliver something to the hockey fans of the close-knit community that no club has ever achieved. Success not just in the short term, but for years to come.
And we want to do it right. You know, we want to have a junior hockey team in Sioux Lookout to stay. You know, not here for a few years and then out of here because of, you know, this, that. And we want to make sure that we're here and building the right things the right way so it continues to be a good junior hockey team for a long time.
A quick look at the Bombers roster is a clear indicator of just how much players believe in Sioux Lookout's first-year bench boss, as 7 members of the squad, including team captain Lucas Tremarchi, made the journey up north along with their coach from the Niagara region after working with Johnston's hockey development program.
Well, we've built a lot of chemistry playing summer hockey with Pursuit, which is our coach's summer hockey league and development programs. So we've been playing a lot there, so we have a lot of chemistry, and it's just been good knowing a couple guys coming up here and settling in well.
For me, I think it helped, obviously, I knew those guys for a couple of years, you know, and trained them, so they trust me. And that's, I think, ultimately why they followed me up here, which is nice to have that support.
On top of having a few familiar faces to rely on, Tremarchi credits the fans of Sioux Lookout for how they've welcomed the team into their community, a factor that has likely played a role in the expansion club's hot start to the season, which saw the Bombers take 3 of their first 4 games playing in front of the home crowd.
We've got a lot of fan support, and it was good for our first 4 games, and it's been good having a big crowd there, so it's felt like a playoff game, and just having the support really means a lot.
The Bombers will now look to continue their impressive start to the season this weekend down in Superior, Wisconsin for the SIJHL Annual Showcase. Kurt Black, TBT Sports.
Well, a man who accompanied Terry Fox on his epic journey 42 years ago was meeting people in Terrace Bay and other parts of the North Shore recently. Bill Vigars says it's amazing how many people continue to have strong memories of Fox in 1980.
In Terrace Bay and the other small towns we stopped at, it seemed everybody in town had a Terry Fox story, a Terry Fox memory, whether it was seeing him run past or having an opportunity to talk with him or just seeing him on the highway.
Vigars was a close friend and confidant of Fox during the Marathon of Hope, organizing public events and ensuring the maximum amount of money was raised. He recently came back to this region and went to the Terry Fox Monument to chat with people who interacted with Fox during that time. Vigars says his tour stop at Jackfish Lake near Terrace Bay brought back the strongest memories, as that's where Fox spent the day with 10-year-old Greg Scott, who had also lost a leg to cancer.
And Terry said it was his most inspirational day, and I was able to stand on the shore of Jackfish Lake 42 years later. And if you ever see the video and the scenes from that, in my head yesterday, I could still hear the laughter, because that one particular day was one of the lightest and most comfortable and rewarding days, with Greg there and my kids there and Terry being able to relax and have fun.
Vigars says he's currently working on a book about the Canadian hero. Well, after a 2-year hiatus due to the pandemic, the CP Holiday Train is making its big return to the Northwest this December. The full details have been released by officials with CP Rail. The popular train will make daytime stops along the North Shore on Friday, December 2nd. Then at 8:30 that night, it will arrive in Thunder Bay, all lit up at the CP station on Syndicate Avenue. One of the rail cars features a stage that opens up to the audience, and this year's performers will be Juno Award-winning country singer Tennille Towns and OG Cree singer-songwriter Asa Nabi. The Holiday Train supporters, local food banks, and attendees are encouraged to bring food items or cash donations for the cause. In 2019, more than 1,000 people turned out to see it. The Holiday Train will carry on out west with stops in Ignace, Dryden, Vermilion Bay, and Kenora on December 3rd. And that's all the time we have for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thank you all for joining us, and we hope to see you next time.